Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast. And now here's the guy who is going to start going to hung for all my orthodontic work. I am Rob Sister Nino. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our amazing race recap, the Mega Leg. I already called dibs on Mega Leg on the turkey this Thanksgiving, but we are here to talk about 2 hours of amazing race that took place through India with double the detours, double the tasks, and we're going to have double the fun here tonight as we talk about this 2-hour amazing race. First, let's bring in our chief amazing race correspondent. Here she is. Jessica. Jess, how are you?
I'm great, Rob, and it's a good thing you're calling dibs on the Mega Leg because I don't want your kids to eat it and have a bunch of disgusting stuff coming out of them.
Disgusting. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish that would prevent that from happening by just not giving them any part of the turkey, but I think that happens either way. So excited to talk about this night of amazing race, and back with us, of course, here. Give it up for Mr. Mike Bloom.
So happy to be here, Rob. Ready to get swiggy with it.
Yes.
And travel through India here. Double the distance.
Double the distance. All right. Yeah. 2-hour Mega Leg. Kaylin and Haley have gone home. We will hear from them on our Tar Pit episode of Rob Has a Podcast for you later on this week. We'll also take your questions. Send them in to us. Amazing Race at robhasawebsite.com. And normally we'd be able to answer these for you live, but this podcast is not live. So you can send your questions in. We'd love to hear them. Amazing Race at robhasawebsite.com.
And don't worry, you don't need to catch ones and zeros with your hands to send your emails. Just click a nice friendly button.
Okay. All right. But let's talk about this leg in India, because right before we came on, there was some discussion about how it was a little bit, some different opinions on the panel about tonight's episode. And Jess, let me start with you. What your review of the Mega Leg? Hold on. Let me just let's put some respect on the Mega Leg name, the Mega Leg.
When I hear the word Mega Leg, I kind of hear it in Dr. Evil's voice.
I kind of hear it as Mega Lega High, Mega Hiney Ho.
Yeah, that's what I believe Naomi Calhoun tweeted at Jess and I. It's very much Jambi from Pee-wee's Playhouse. I'm surprised I didn't have to find that head in the
also
AR
wore a turban.
To put on like a column, right? Of like, this is where you are, Jambi. This is where Cherry is in the Indian version of Pee-wee's Playhouse.
I really feel like that might be somehow culturally insensitive.
Yes, that Jambi?
Yeah, Jambi the genie in India, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not sure where he's from, but I feel like there may be stereotyping.
Okay.
He does have a turban.
Yeah, I think he's also green.
He is green.
Yeah. Okay.
So that might just be the tint from the afterlife or whatever like nebulous purgatory that Jambi lives in. Do you think Jambi did something bad in his normal life that like this is where he lives out his days?
Well, I wonder, could Pee-wee only see him with an iPad? Was that part of it also? I think that there might have been some augmented reality.
Yeah, I mean,
see you, Jambi.
I don't know. Okay, sorry, we're way off the
dear
track.
God.
Okay, Jess, Mega Leg.
I mean, it really wouldn't be a podcast with the two of you
Sorry.
if I didn't start to make a point and have the two of you descend into bad impressions.
Bad impressions? That's the secret word!
Ah! Yeah, I have to say, it's a good thing they had Mega Leg going for him, because the word Mega Leg is just about the only thing that this leg had going for it.
Mega Leg. Yes, you were down on the. I just want to make sure that we get this straight. So you were down on the leg or the outcome or both?
Both, kind of. I wanted a surprising outcome. I mean, Haley and Kaylin had a good run, and you knew they were kind of running on fumes going into this leg, but I wanted the surprise, and they didn't even bother to pretend there was going to be a surprise.
Yeah. I think I'm really excited to talk about this leg because I think there were some very bad mistakes made in it. In terms of planning, because essentially what we watched was a 2-hour circling of the drain where Kaylin and Haley's game essentially ended from jump when they got a bad cab driver. Because from that on, and they told me that as much in my exit interview with them, which should be out right now actually on parade.com, that essentially apparently the cab driver got them lost for hours. And so you just sort of throw on top those 40-minute cumulative yields and all the other stuff going on. And it was just, if you watch The Amazing Race for the suspense of it all, this might be one of the least suspenseful episodes in recent memory than I can imagine. On top of that, sort of like we talked about on the tar pits, it was a lot of alliance, Mine 5. Now we have like the onions almost. We're going by the BR rules, and that now we have this 3-team alliance that is within the 5. It just seemed like, I'll come right out and say, and I mean no offense to the teams whatsoever, because again, I really do love this cast, but this was far and away my least favorite episode of the season so far. Episodes, I guess I will say, cumulatively. I just feel like not a lot of it worked. There are certainly nuggets that I think we can sink our teeth into, like a nice pair of chompers, as Phil would put it. But yeah. I think by and large, there were just moments where I would be like, oh yeah, this is exciting, but also we know that Haley and Kaylin are going to be eliminated. And so there's some tension removed.
Yeah. So was it just getting unlucky that Kaylin and Haley were so far behind, or was there something fundamentally wrong with the mega leg, Jess?
Well, I don't think there was anything necessarily wrong with the mega leg. I can't blame the mega leg for their ouster, especially since there were many normal legs that probably should have caused their ouster before this.
Yeah.
But I do think that if we're going to have a completely expected outcome, I at least want to see something really super cool happening. And we got some beautiful locations. I think this might be the most beautiful India has ever looked on this program. But I don't know. There was no there. It was really, these tasks were not all that much fun to watch.
Yeah, I was not as down on it overall. That's why I'm a little surprised that you're both, and I'm sure you're right, because you both have arrived at the same conclusion, and me as the more of the Amazing Race casual, that I definitely am wrong. But I didn't mind it so much. I mean, for Kaylin and Haley, Mike, they really are sort of like the miracle story of the Hanukkah lamp in terms of being an Amazing Race team, somehow managing to convert like being a team at the back of the pack somehow into maybe staying around for 5 legs past where they should have.
Right, but this is like the equivalent of they're on the 5th night of Hanukkah, the Romans come in and like throw the Maccabees aside and knock over the menorah. I think that part of it is the fact that after Leo and Alana were eliminated, I know people were certainly pulling for like, okay, this is where, the blondes will rise and they'll sort of infiltrate this alliance. And that ends up not happening. And of course, this happens all the time in the Amazing Race. I mean, to go back to the question of like, was the mega leg the problem? I personally believe that I think the double yields was just a bad thing to put into this leg. Especially, like, I don't want to say change things up on the fly when you know the situation, but if you know that it's a situation where it's a 5-team alliance and 1 team on the outs, I'd say maybe take a look at the double leg with 2 yields in it and be like, maybe we don't add the ability to have a pylon happen here. Maybe we remove this a bit.
Okay, I'm gonna take it to the think tank for a second. What if we had all of these things that you can throw in someone's path to slow them up, but instead of once you use your yield, you can't use it again. Once you have a yield used on you, nobody else can ever use it on you again.
That's really interesting. I like that idea, or at least I'm intrigued by that idea of like, well, because Kaylin and Haley got yielded once. I mean, again, I don't think the second yield affected them whatsoever because they were so far behind at that point. But that would have been interesting. I mean, in that case, I think just given the trajectory of the season, nobody would have used it. I don't think even like the 3-team inner core would have yielded Gary and D'Angelo right now because they know that Kaylin and Haley would have gone. But I think it could be an interesting caveat as we. Also, I guess one of our big ticket items is that we bid adieu to the yield, at least for this season. This was the last time they had to use it.
Forever.
Yeah, that didn't really go great. The yield, especially, I don't think we're gonna miss it so much in its finale here in the season. Just that I do feel like that things ended up going especially bad for Kaylin and Haley. One, that they have a lot of trouble getting from point A to point B. That has been well documented.
Either by their own volition or by somebody else.
Yes, but I thought that they also got especially unlucky that it seemed like, Hung and Chi were at the back of the pack. And I wonder, had like Gary and D'Angelo been at the back of the pack, I wonder if we would have seen certainly it sounded like for the Riley and Madison, the reason why they played their yield was, oh, Hung and Chi are in trouble. I got to buy Hung and Chi some more time here at the end of the race because I don't want Hung and Chi to get eliminated. So we're going to put the yield onto Kaylin and Haley here. Whereas had it been maybe Iswar and Aparna, or especially Gary and D'Angelo, that it would not have been used on them if it was a different team that was in fifth.
Yeah, I think at some point you can plausibly, you almost maybe even want one of those teams to go out at that point, because you can do that through no fault of your own, keep your hands clean. And I think if it had been both of those teams at the back of the pack, I think nobody uses the yield because, hey, if one of those teams goes out, then that's less pretending they have to do that there's not a second secret alliance within the first secret alliance.
Mm-hmm. I also do wonder, again, it just was all a calamity once Kaylin and Haley fell so far behind. Not even with the taxis, even before him, when they were the last to leave the sort of like tuk-tuk CO2 emissions checkpoint. I wonder, had they been in the hunt, like if they were in like third place when they got to the yield, would Will and James still have yielded them, right? Like, would the Volley Bros have still yielded them, knowing that they were in the competition? Would that incentivize them further? Or would it be like, well, we can't guarantee that they're so far in the back now, so it's less so about, forcing a guaranteed outcome, and we'll just sort of let things be?
Yeah, I don't think that they would have. I think that I think the teams were concerned about Hung and Chi, where I don't think necessarily that the Mine 5 was, gung ho. Like, I think that probably people like, maybe the Iswar and Aparna, or, Gary and D'Angelo, but it seems like that this top three was more interested in going after people that were outside of that top three that were in the Mine 5. You heard Will and James a bunch of times talk about how the Mine 5 is dead. It just so happened that Kaylin and Haley, there was no other play other than to eliminate them.
Yeah, I think if there's another, it does get more interesting if there's another option, but there was no other option at this point.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess if anything, this is more so like a place setting, if you will, for, I guess, what's to come next week a little bit, as we saw.
Which I have to think next week. Next week, if somehow Gary and D'Angelo survive a double U-turn next week, like it will be a miracle. I see. I feel like it's like 95% Gary and D'Angelo are going out next week.
And so that's and that's the tough thing about having, the strongest teams in an alliance together, right? Is you could be like, well, maybe they'll get out ahead and then they'll get to the U-turn board. But considering that the top three teams in terms of placement average are in an alliance together, like, it's a pretty good chance, more than it's not, that some combination of those three teams will get to the board before they do.
Yeah, I will say, I think we're at the point in the game where we spend, when you're watching Survivor and you have a dominant alliance like this, you kind of sit through a lot of, like, you could fast forward through a lot of the season until you get to the point where everybody that's not in the alliance is gone. Like, they've all been pagonged, and now the pagonging is over, and now you get to see the really interesting part happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I don't know. This is kind of mitigated somewhat by the fact that we know there's a double secret alliance within the secret alliance. And it's kind of like, well, if that's the final three teams, that's going to be super duper boring.
Yeah. Would it be more interesting if we found out that like one of the teams had multiple final threes? Like Hung and Chi was also had like a final three with Gary and D'Angelo and Iswar and Aparna.
Oh, of all people, Hung and Chi double dealing would be really, really interesting.
Yeah. But no, it seems like there's a very clear three, and then there's also
yeah, and they're gonna start playing Moby, and we're gonna do like the genius pivot to Hung and Chi making this deal like back in Paris,
or just that guy singing the "Welcome to Hyderabad" song from the pit stop as he's wailing away on his drum.
That dude was awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So should we talk about the actual leg itself?
Yeah, let's get into, because I will say, I think maybe also one of the downsides of the mega leg / double legs of yore is that there aren't many opportunities for catch up. Like Haley and Kaylin say in the beginning, like, one of the great things about the mega leg is that there are plenty of opportunities to catch up. Spoiler alert, that doesn't happen. And I also feel like if you look at like how the placements were from the first hour to the second hour, it really was like a competition between the three guy teams, Hung and Chi and Iswar and Aparna, and then Haley and Kaylin all the way in the back. So I think it's almost like the more you drag out a leg, the more those placements get dragged out as well, and it becomes more difficult for teams to sort of mix and jump placements there.
Yeah. Well, Mike, that was the entire problem with Amazing Race 24. Okay, it wasn't the entire problem, but it was like a big problem, which was every time they stopped, they stayed in one place for 2 legs. So when you do that a lot, you don't have a chance for everybody to catch up in the middle, because they're just going to let people go. Like, even if you have that pit stop in the middle, like everybody's just going in order, there's no equalizer at any point. And as much as we hate the constant equalizing, I think you have to at least give people a chance to catch up. And so even if you don't have an equalizer, you have, like, back in the day, you had flights. Like, if somebody got a really good flight, they could jump ahead. And we don't have that anymore either. Or they sign up for a time slot to leave the next day, or even pick a time slot at random. We had that one time. That was pretty good. So yeah, I think it's the opposite. I think you have the mega leg. You have 0 chances to catch up. Whatever place you're in, you better hope that you can make up a huge amount of time somewhere. And that's the only way you're getting ahead.
Or just hope that another team screws up so badly that they fall in. Like, I'm thinking of, like, in season 7 when it was Meredith and Gretchen with the infamous elephant. I think similarly in India, like, so far behind, but Lynn and Alex just by, like, sheer luck fell so far behind that Meredith and Gretchen were able to sort of lap them at the end of the day.
Yep. Or if you have a trouble distinguishing between a flag and a spear, for instance, everybody else could lap you.
Okay, let's talk about the Cyber City. Just what is the Cyber City?
Well, I think they're just they're highlighting Hyderabad as this capital of tech development, which, you know, India is known as a tech country.
Sure.
You know, for many reasons, but I think there's a lot of startups that are maybe not as known in the US that are well known within India that are all like their capital, like their headquarters are in Hyderabad. That's the sense I get, is that it's kind of more of a, like, within India, it would be like their Silicon Valley.
Okay, so we're going to head to the Cyber City, which sounds very cool. And then we're going to start to work on pollution control. I was very confused about what the teams are doing here in pollution control, because it seemed like they were hailing autos, not tuk-tuks, Riley and Madison. So you are hailing an auto to give it a smog test, but I don't really know what jurisdiction the Amazing Race contestants have to randomly flag vehicles and give them smog tests. Like, it's one thing, like, hey, I need a ride somewhere, but it seems like, hey, you need a smog test.
Hey, excuse you, Rob. This is a decaled van parked on the side of the road. They have all the jurisdiction you could ever want to say, hey, come over here. Let me stick something in your tailpipe.
Odd of, like, no, come here. Park right here. Okay, we're going to give your car a test right now.
Well, the only thing I can think of is maybe you are allowed to ignore them sometimes, but you have to have a certain number of them within a time frame. And so this is like, it's like traffic school, but like 10 seconds long.
So do you think the certificate was real then? Or was it one of those, like, phony certificates?
I would guess that I would be pretty pissed off if I was driving my auto and I see, oh, good, it's the smog test van. I got to get that done. I'm going to go get my vehicle inspected. And I go there and it's like, no, they're just filming it from some stupid American TV show. This is not a real certificate. You still got to go get that done.
So, Jess, it actually works that, so it is a real certification, but they don't get it until the episode airs. It's like the prizes. So they have to wait 2 years. These guys have been
driving around for 2 years with, like, smogged up tuk-tuks, and they had no regulation behind it.
Autos, not tuk-tuks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me use the proper vernacular there. Yeah, I mean, the other thing, though, is I can imagine it is the real McCoy, though, because for all intents and purposes, like, the racers did not have to do anything except bring in the autos. Like, they had to put the thing in the tailpipe, but otherwise it's this guy in the van just going like, boop, 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 boop. Yes. Yep, you're all good. Here's your certificate.
But didn't they have to also log in? Because I think I saw them using the computer.
I think they had to, like, I don't think these guys wanted any people near their computers at all. So I think they had to enter the license plate number, the vehicle ID, stick the thing in the tailpipe to do the test, and then the certificate got printed out.
By the way, when they had to stick the thing in the tailpipe, is that where Hung got the inspiration for this quote?
Being a parent, kids are so disgusting, and can't even imagine what kind of disgustingness comes out of their little bodies.
That's okay. Okay, he says okay.
So if like the patient needed a colonoscopy, I'd do it too.
Yeah.
A colonoscopy.
Yeah.
She's not wrong. She is not wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, you had to get your inspection from the teams, and so this was like a little bit of like a minor detail that it took me 2 times of going. I had to go back and like, wait, what happened? But so there's a point, Jess, where Riley and Madison are trying to hail autos, not tuk-tuks, and so Riley gets one and Madison gets one, and D'Angelo says, no, you can't. You're not allowed to get 2 at a time. And this was, I guess, that D'Angelo is making things up and making up rules. Riley and Madison were highly offended that D'Angelo tried this move.
Yeah, it's, or was he consciously trying a move, or was it just something that didn't occur to him to break the, to kind of try to break the task?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out why they were mad.
It makes
and
a lot
I
of
had to
sense,
watch
though.
it again. Yeah,
you get done twice as fast.
We listened to the most recent Tar Pits. I think D'Angelo Williams is not good about sharing, considering that when Gary said that perhaps I would help your wife should you move on, D'Angelo is not happy about that. So like, hey,
is that sharing?
He can't have 2 wives. You can't have 2 autos.
Yeah, well, it's a different
with
thing.
His wife.
Yeah, it's a different thing if you hail one of the autos and then you don't need that auto to finish the task and you give it to someone else. That's a different thing, Mike. Yeah. That's closer to what we're talking about here.
By the way, Mike, if that's the criteria for not being good with sharing, put me down for not good with sharing also.
I'm just saying Mormons are the best sharers by that logic.
Oh dear. How
Yeah,
are we getting on this?
This was like a typical Amazing Race example, in my opinion. Like we saw this a lot with like Dave in season 24, and it certainly wasn't on that level but like the how dare you-ism of this one thing happened, let me blow this out of proportion and use it as a microcosm of the larger point that I have. It's from our vantage point, I think it's a little ridiculous.
And I think it's probably more than a little played up. I mean, we are trying to tell the story of the secret trio doesn't like Gary and D'Angelo and wants them gone after the people that they dislike even more. And so I think every moment of anything resembling friction between Gary and D'Angelo and any other team, we are going to see it, and we're going to see it hard. Like we are going to see the crap out of it. And I think, he might have been annoyed in the moment, but I don't think it necessarily informed every step they took for the entire rest of the leg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say that I think now, this felt more Big Brothery to me, I think, than even like the Hung and D'Angelo stuff last week of like, it really is sort of textbook modern Big Brother of like all right, here are the outsiders and we're going to ostracize them. And then once that happens, we're setting up for the next target and we're ostracizing them and talking about, how bad they are in the Amazing Race. So now I really am starting to see it, which is another reason why, the Mind 5 is certainly most successful alliance in Amazing Race history, but I'm not particularly pleased by it as of late.
Okay. All right. So after we're going through our pollution checkpoint, we are going to our detour time. Okay. And the question is, Mike, do you have the names of the detour?
Yes. It is Food App versus Number Trap.
Food App or Number Trap. Just what was so appealing about Number Trap that so many of the teams decided to go there? I think Kaylin and Haley were the only team to opt in for Food App to start.
Yeah, to start.
Yeah, I think it was just like it said, play a video game. And how many times on the show have we seen people have to do a simulator of some sort? And you got the flight simulator. Yeah.
Right. And then at season 29, I remember they had to play like knockoff Street Fighter against like sports champion.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
With one hand tied behind his back. Mm-hmm. And then there was one where, there was, of course, they thought they were going to bungee jump and then it was a virtual bungee jump. So I think everybody sees that and they're like, oh, okay, virtual bungee jump. I can do that.
Yeah.
And I will also say, I think the unknown of Number Trap, to Jess's point, probably outweighs the known of Food App, which is like, very straightforward. You can look at the name and be like, okay, I know I'm going to be the delivery person. And those also are also sort of hit and miss depending on how navigation is. So I can imagine how maybe the mystery of Number Trap maybe outweighs like the given circumstances of Food App, even though, one team eventually relents and decides to swap over to Food App after a while.
Just for Iswar and Aparna, it was like, we got a coding task. Finally.
Yeah, they were so excited. And it was hilarious at the top. And they're like, well, we are software engineers, so we're really hoping to find a coding task in this cyber city. And you're just like, oh, come on. Like, they're not going to give you a coding task. I'm sorry. Like, this is not a skill set that you need for the Amazing Race. And then, color me wrong. It is.
Was it though? Was it a coding task?
Well, it was an unscramble a code task, which is different from a coding task.
It was more of a decoding task.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will also say, much like Kazakhstan with the apple tree, I am intrigued by Phil's concept that it's believed that India invented the number 0. I feel like I'd heard that before. Well, I don't know.
It's a math history thing. Is like you made mathematics made a big leap forward when somebody conceptualized 0. So I think that is an actual true thing.
Yeah, but I felt like it was a bigger leap to, even if India invented the number 0, then I thought it was a big leap to get to, which makes coding possible. Without the number 0, we couldn't code.
It is though. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, Rob, but it is true because everything in code is built on binary.
No, I understand that.
It's but like the presence or absence of something.
But if the number 0 didn't exist, we couldn't code with 1s and 2s?
Oh, we couldn't.
Well, could 1 become the new 0 in that instance?
I think we'd figure it out.
I'm going to go upstairs and get my husband with the math degree to come down and explain this to you. And then everybody's going to shut off the podcast because you do not want to get Kip going about math.
All right. Fair enough.
I'm intrigued by like other numbers existed for a while. And then one day somebody said like, we need a number for when there's not a number. And then they came up with 0. Like, I'm not meant to like judge anything. It's just the advent of these concepts are so legitimately intriguing to me.
Yeah, I'm reading the Wikipedia entry for 0 now. So congratulations, you made my night less exciting.
Yeah. All right. So, Mike, did you enjoy the visual? Like, okay, you have to zap the 0s and the 1s. We were Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah, this is Mr. Miyagi's 5-hole, basically, right? This is ultimate like wax on, wax off, move your hands around. I mean, it was certainly a fun image. I like to see Gary the gamer really like be in his element. I also love, speaking of gaming, I love Riley and Madison. Well, he is literally a huge gamer. He's very tall. But I loved Riley and Madison doing the Hadouken method of putting their hands together to easily.
That was awesome.
I believe they actually like outright said, do it like a Hadouken and just use it to easily capture the numbers.
Now, I really could not believe that Hung and Chi struggled so much with this. They have proven themselves to be one of the most capable teams in this entire race, but for whatever reason, that this was like became very physically taxing on Hung and Chi, where they could not continue due to shoulder soreness and many other issues, I guess, that experienced video gamers must go through.
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff that if you haven't honed that skill set, even if you're very, very good at everything else, it's gonna, they were too busy eating 5 pounds of pizza to really perfect their video game skills.
Well, not to mention, I think this is a case where Hung's height really was a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Because height means shorter arm length. And even though Chi seems like a fairly tall person, if Hung's trying to take care of stuff on her screen, she can't really reach up or to the side as much as some of these other tall guys.
She didn't have as much reach. Okay. All right. So for the second time this season, Jess, we're going to see Hung and Chi are going to switch detours. I believe they're the only team in this entire race to have done it, but they're going back to the well.
Yep. To their credit, they knew they weren't going to get it, and they knew that. I think they probably also knew they had a little bit of a cushion at this point. So,
right. Well, yeah, because I think they did like 12 or so tries before going.
And it's like you could sit there like Leo and Alana and keep pounding away at it until you burn up any kind of cushion you had. Or you could say, all right, we've tried this enough times to know that we're not getting any better at it. And I think Chi even says, I'm not getting any better at this.
Yeah.
So it's good at that point. They knew that there was another team behind them, so they could just cut their losses and go try the other thing.
It just seems like to me like that the chance of getting the video game, I feel like that, or even let's take 5 minutes off rather than go and start a whole new task.
I don't know. I mean, I think Hung and Chi have a surprising level of skill assessment for themselves to the point where, like, it's almost akin to the 90 seconds that Hung gave Chi last leg, where they're like, okay, we're going to give this 2 more tries and then move on. They're very good at like setting limits for themselves, almost deadlines, and then moving past it.
Yeah,
and it turns
you only
out
get 90 seconds to do the thing.
They're not going to tin cup this thing.
Exactly. And it turns out that, had they taken the food app Detour first, there's a chance they might have actually finished in first on this mega leg overall, or at least gotten into the top 3, because I think this was one of those things that, like, once they fell back, they couldn't catch up with those first 3 teams.
Let's talk about Swiggy. I love Swiggy.
Swiggy I for India.
Yes. No, that Hung and Chi, that can we call them Hung and Swiggy C?
No, God.
No. No,
I'd love
not.
to see out on the basketball court, personally.
Swiggy?
Yeah. I want to see trash talk people on the basketball court.
Yeah. Hung's trash talk. That was a not so great shot.
In your face.
I'm sure you've done better in the past.
This must be frustrating for you.
Welcome,
I can relate.
Welcome to my house.
Yeah.
eat 2 pounds of pizza and my dust.
Boom shakalaka.
Nothing but net.
And boom goes the dynamite.
All right, Swiggy. Jess, could you tell me a little bit more about Swiggy? Because that I order a lot of food on apps that I don't know necessarily how it works. That I use a DoorDash or a Postmates, and so I put it in the order, and then I assume that there is somebody that they go and pick it up and they bring it to my house. Is there a person? There's an operator on the other side. Like, all right, go pick up the food. All right, go into Wendy's.
Yes,
okay,
the Matrix.
Yeah, make sure get napkins. He's gonna need napkins. Okay, all right, get in the car.
Honestly, yes. They don't really have to break it down this granularly, but a lot of these apps have someone like you can call the center and say, okay, here's my order. I'm having trouble finding this. Can you direction? Or they just they dispatch you to go somewhere, and the dispatcher guy is like, okay, then you have to go up this way and here's your directions. Like, that's pretty common. I think most of them, like they said, the phone has GPS. They don't really need that much hand holding. But the thing that I was interested in, and Rob, you would have no way of knowing this. Mike, you might know this. This is a task of Amazing Race Canada.
Yeah, they did. Well, actually, it was the old friend of Big Brother Canada, Skip the Dishes.
Yes, indeed.
A task where they had to do 3 deliveries.
Yeah, and one of our listeners actually worked for Skip the Dishes and helped them coordinate the tasks. So I got to
King of the Mats.
Yeah,
Matt Schrader.
That's right. So yeah, Matt and I talked about this when it happened on Amazing Race Canada, like how this whole task was set up. And seems to me that the defining difference between Swiggy and the same apps in North America is that you don't necessarily have to give them an address. Like, you give a description of who you are, and then they have to go find you. Like,
interesting. So it's like a DoorDash meets misconnections on Craigslist.
Yes.
Right. Well, Jess, I think this makes sense because it seems like, based on what I've seen on The Amazing Race, that a majority of the Swiggy customers are people who are exercising and are on the go, whether they're at the gym or perhaps on a run in the park ordering food.
I'm going to get my reps in, and then I'm going to immediately sit down to a giant bowl of biryani.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I think it's, he's dressed for the occasion, right? He's doing reps in his polo shirt, which is always a questionable choice to make with him. I clock this guy immediately.
This guy is definitely he's getting tipped off when they're coming. They're like, okay, get back in position, do some more lat pulls. And then he's just going to be sitting there doing it while they come in. So, the rest of the time, he's kicking back, eating the food.
Here's my question, Mike. Is this person an Amazing Race hired extra, or does the people at Swiggy have some sort of a pull of like, hey, we want people to be out there thinking that the Swiggy customer is in shape, healthy, a lot of vitality. Like, we don't want to couch potato.
So this is sort of a thing of like, only the highest clientele gets Swiggy, the best of the best.
Yes, there are Swiggy influencers.
Exactly. Like, only the greatest Adonises look down upon the plebs that get other DoorDash
Only the one woman that hangs out in the men's hostel.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I will say that this, as I recall from talking to Matt about the skip the dishes task, it was basically like they got people that worked for the company to be home at their houses so that they could deliver it. So these might just
Are you
be.
implying this man lives at the gym?
I'm implying he works for Swiggy, and they sent him to go hang out at his gym so he could be part of the task.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk about my favorite Swiggy employee also?
The guy running the task, or the guy
yeah.
that's exasperated?
Yeah, I bet Operator 143.
Yes,
has had
poor
it
guy
with Kaylin and Haley.
He is so done. I don't
He's
think
over it.
I think they're like, hey, take some time off. Like, you can do this task. Like, great. I don't have to go into work for the day. He's like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? They keep yelling the street name that they're not even on the right street. I'm done with this. I need to go home to my gym and my food.
Yeah, I felt so seen by Operator 143. I love you. That he is me, and I am him. He is I.
I hear that. He is like the face of 2020. Is that guy? I say I like the guy running the task too, because he was so excited when somebody rocked up to it. I think he was worried everybody was going to do the other task. It's like, oh, the other task is video games. Oh, it's going to be a lot more fun. They're going to be inside. They don't have to run around in the heat. And then they show up. He's like, oh my God, you're here. All right, welcome to the Swiggy task.
I would say I also liked Hung and Cheese, but I couldn't really judge how Hung and Cheese Operator, discern the task, because Hung was doing, again, a very great micromanaging thing of being like, I am taking one step east. I am taking another step east. Am I going in the right direction now?
Yeah. In fairness to Kaylin and Haley, who had some struggles here, that my wife asked me to bring her clothes the other day. For people who are not regular Rob is a Podcast patron cast subscribers, we're having some work done at my house that is an ongoing situation, and there were workers, and my wife was sleeping, and I needed to go bring her clothes to get dressed so that she could then go to the part of the house that the workers were in. And I had to get like 9 trips of, no, I said, get me a shirt that's in the second drawer. That's the closest, like, okay, wait. All right. And I was just bringing like multiple items back. Like, no, wrong. Go back. Do it again.
So, yeah, what do we think happened with Kaylin and Haley here? Because I think arguably this is the task that they struggled with the most. Was it just like were they not as communicative as Hung was? Or was it just a matter of they walked down the wrong alley and got confused for a hot second?
I mean, they've had a little bit of trouble with directions before. I think maybe it's just they kind of went the wrong way and then tried to correct to go back the right way, and then they didn't go the way they were supposed to go. I think that's what it is. And maybe there was like a little bit of a disconnect. They said they were having trouble understanding the guy, and he was having a lot of trouble understanding them, clearly, like maybe on a spiritual level as well as an auditory level. But I was really surprised that they had to deliver to the same 3 people. That was the thing that shocked me, because especially after all of the conversation we had about sauerkraut last week.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
It seems like you could have teamed up, or Hung and Chi could have been like, yeah, it's the guy down there, if they wanted to help somebody.
Yeah, that's actually very true. It could very easily be like, all right, us 3, we're going to go together, and we're going to drop off at all these houses, and everyone wait for everybody, find your buddy, and then we'll go on to the next one. Yeah,
and the skip the dishes task, as I recall, allowed for that. Like they had that in mind, and so everybody got a different address that they had to find. And I really think that if you're going to have a task where you have to deliver things to people, and I think in the past Amazing Race has done this, you have to take everybody to a slightly different place that's a comparable distance.
Yeah, or maybe do them in a different order, right? Like if Hung and Chi had to do 1, 2, 3,
yeah,
Kaylin and Haley can do 3, 2, 1, so that there's less incentive to be like, oh, we'll go places together, because you have to go in a certain
specific order. People, Mike. This is the perfect cross section of the Swiggy demo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you must visit the gods and goddesses that live here in Hyderabad that only eat the finest of Swiggy.
I got to talk about the guy in the park for a second, because there was a moment where I felt really bad for him, because he's doing his exercises in the park and they find him. And like one time he's running, one time he's stretching. And there's a point where he picks up the bag and he looks into the camera and he gives it this big smile. And I'm about to be an Instagram influencer. And then the camera cuts away from him immediately. And I'm like, oh, you thought you got more of a moment than you did.
It's more awkward that the people that have less teeth than this guy will get more camera time than the guy who is really trying to mug to the camera with his full smile.
Yeah.
All right. Can we go back to the number trap offices? This was like, I guess, some sort of a tech company that do they have these sort like these stations are part of like this is like some sort of like India based like Google where this is like like they've made this activity for the employees to do on their downtime to play the 0-1 game. Because they had
doubt
like 9 stations for
even when you're not coding, you must be thinking code,
right? I mean, the Amazing Race did not set this up for this task. Like they went someplace where they already had this set up.
I think you can rent these. They look pretty portable, and I think they might have had 1 or 2. Like especially if they're the kind of company that deals with that kind of motion sensing technology, which there are plenty of companies that do. They might have had 1 or 2 of them, but I think you could probably rent it a bunch and just set it up. They need an office space that looks kind of techy, where you can have people sitting in a boardroom and, oh, this one's funny. They got a boardroom called the Bunker. We'll do that.
Yeah, which was such a weird thing. It was definitely the George T.A.R. Martin fake out moment of the week of like, my God, we're going to a bunker? What kind of place is this? Oh, it's the name of a conference room on the 4th floor. Sorry to interrupt your important meeting, tech execs. I need to grab my clue here.
You know, all the conference rooms at BuzzFeed are named after internet cats.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Good to know. All right. So
I don't know. I don't know if there were any other. I forgot what the other conference rooms in that location were named. So maybe there was theming there too, unless they decided to call one the Bunker and stop there.
Yeah, they just have one conference room. They just call it the Bunker.
All right. The teams would head to the roadblock that would combine the old and the new. Mike, where was this?
So this was, oh goodness, where was this? Shahid Tombs, I believe it was. It was a mausoleum, and I guess things got brought to life in more ways than one. As for this roadblock, you had to sort of go around this segmented area, holding an iPad, looking through augmented reality to find 3 different former kings, wearing specific turbans, and then you had to go up above, find these men milling about like they are theater people finding the space as part of a warm-up, and then bring them over to the proper column. That being said, Jess, as much as you spoke about the whole sauerkraut not being fixed in the detour, I was so happy to hear at a certain point, like, oh yeah, once a person has been put in a location, they can't be used again. That's like, again, just like we talked about in tar pits, those are small changes you can make to tasks that just really disincentivize people from colluding, because it's like, why are you helping somebody if you're not going to get any credit for it?
Yep. And you need a mix. I think you need a mix so that you can use your powers of discernment to decide if it's a good idea to work together with someone or not. And sometimes if your answers are going to be completely different and you have to kind of use different strategies, then don't work together. And then some places, if you have to do the task together and it's going to be quicker if you give each other the answer, or if you at least arrive at it together, then I think you just can't have all sauerkraut and no turbans.
Yeah,
and I think you could have all turbans and no sauerkraut, but it does not work the other way around.
So I, the viewer, who is a dumb idiot, was getting very confused here, because to me, I thought we were doing like what we did at the museum when we were in France, where we were trying to match up the person that we found on the iPad in this virtual Pokemon Go game, which we were doing. So we found our our Pokemonster. We found our guy. And then we went up there, and I'm like, well, this guy has a mustache. I mean, what are they doing here? I did not.
Rob, the eyes are up here. It's all about what's on the head.
We were only matching turbans. I thought we had to match the guy also.
Well, Rob, it wasn't the same guys in the painting in the museum either. Like I thought,
but they looked like them. They had the same facial hair.
Not real. Well, sometimes, not always. Like there was one guy's hair was a completely different color, and he was skinny, and the guy in the picture was fat. I think it's all about like what they're wearing. It's got nothing to do with like what their face looks like, and I think that's just kind of a red herring. But I thought this was basically functionally identical to the museum task, and I was like, oh, another one of these.
Right, but there was an additional wrinkle in the placement of everything, which got like James in an entire tizzy, because that's, again, this is why we have fun when teams are not necessarily inclined or cannot share anything. I think Umberto actually sent out a great tweet to us about like how, per our discussion in the tar pits, it's less so that, the Mind 5 Alliance has led to a different outcome and more so that it can lead to some boringness in people just sharing answers and you don't get the fun in people struggling through tasks. We got that here. From a lot of people, between James, between Iswar, just like really struggling to figure it out. And it mainly came down to like orienting yourselves on the columns versus, I guess, comparing yourselves to the landmark outside, because everything was like shifted one to the right or to the left than what it actually was.
Yeah. Did that come through to the viewer, Jess?
It was a little convoluted. I think they should have had like, and they've done this with other tasks. They should have had a diagram where they show the ones up top and then the ones below, and they're like, they match up like this. And I think, honestly, if they're a little bit swapped like that, I think the best thing for you to do is to focus only on the ones on the end. Like, just go to the first one and then work at that first one until you've got him, and then work the next one so that you know exactly where they are.
Yeah, I'm intrigued why. I'm sure this was a strategy that we didn't see of just stand at one end and like slowly work your way down. Because I think the problem for a while was just like not being able to see where these guys were at. And so I can imagine it'd be easiest to just start at the end, find the first guy you see, put him there, and if it's like the wrong location, then really shuffle him around, and that's going to be your endpoint, no matter what.
And honestly, if you've never done an augmented reality thing before, it is hard to get the hang of it. And especially, like, I think the time that I've done it, they have little spots on the floor and they're like, stand on the floor here and put your device up at your chest level and then look at the device. And it takes a little bit of doing. And if there's not a point on the floor where you're supposed to be, I think it takes a long time to figure out exactly how it works.
Okay.
And by that time, you might be in the middle of the thing and you don't know where you don't know where it starts.
Yeah, not a lot of drama here. Ultimately, it was that James was having some trouble. He ends up getting straightened out, and we have our end of episode 1 break here, I believe, as Hung and Chi get through. Iswar and Aparna are still left. We still have the sisters still have to get through it, but that's the end of Act number 1, intermission, Mike.
Right. This is the Act 1 finale, where it sort of is like a one day more or one leg more-esque style of, here's Iswar and Aparna searching out the radar. Here are the blondes waiting out their first yield time of 2. The reprise is soon to come. So it was interesting, especially like the to be continued even on the screen, to really just hammer in like, hey guys, remember this is we weren't going to end this in an hour. This is going to be a full 2-hour shebang.
Jess, do you want to say anything about the first yield of Kaylin and Haley? Anything to say?
Well, there was one thing that I noticed this time, and maybe everybody noticed it the first time we saw a yield being deployed, but this was the first time I noticed it, that you do have to take credit for your yield, because there's a sticker on the top of your yield thingy that's got your picture on it. And I had not seen that the first time that they used one.
I also loved, because I think we had a question as well with the first yield thing of like, where are they going to put it? There's a handy dandy little magnet below the box. I don't know if you saw that. I know Riley and Madison stuck their hourglass to.
Yeah, that's where you have to put it when you flip it over.
Yeah,
to make it work. Yeah. All right, let's talk about our second hour of The Amazing Race. And I was pumped to see this, Jess. This or That is back.
That's my favorite Phil gif of all time.
Yeah.
You can get with this or you can get with that.
I feel like that they did not really make a meal out of this or that this time.
Yeah, I don't know if do you think it's like there's psychology in it of the vast majority of them chose this over that? Like, is there something where if you say, oh, this or that, everyone's going to choose this for some reason? They're more inclined to do so?
There were 6 teams, and I think that 3 chose this and 3 chose that, right?
Yeah, I noticed something about
it just so happened that the first 3 teams all chose this.
Yeah, that's what it more so was. That like 3 teams in a row said this. And I'm like, this is a weird pattern.
And this is something I wish that I had been around to ask Haley and Kaylin about. And I might even just tweet them, because I'm curious about their detour selections. The first, like both times that they've done a detour, they have chosen the one that everybody else is not at. Like they honed in on that.
Mm-hmm.
And they did the food delivery task even if the number trap sounded a little bit cooler. And I wonder if that's because they're trying to make up time. Like maybe the one that everybody went to is a little bit harder, even though it sounds more fun. And they might be able to do something that's like a little bit, that they'll get through more quickly, even though it's not quite as cool.
Though, to be fair, with this and that, I believe it was that they were just given the clue that said this or that. And
I
only
know
when they got to that location could they rip it open and be like, oh, I have to put what in someone's mouth?
They did, but I think your first impulse would always be to go to this because it's the first one. And I think they were trying to zag when everybody else was zigging.
Zig or zag.
Yeah.
That might be the next one. D'Angelo and Gary would love that one.
Mike, do you think that there's any particular reason why this or that comes up? Is it just we don't have the wordplay here?
I honestly think this might have been it, right? Like, I don't know what it would be like. I don't know, like bangle or
braces.
Bangle or braces or something like. I'm not sure. Like blushing,
ornamental or dental.
All right, you know what? Actually, I think that could really work.
Yeah, the bride or open wide. Yeah.
Ooh, see, this is like, Rob, this is why they need you in the room, is because I don't really see like this or that when they did it back in season 25. It did really feel like a deception. And it also was more of like a signpost, right? From what I remember, where it was just going down different alleyways. This seemed like two very separate locations. So I can't honestly think of a reason to use it unless it was just like, we'll throw it. Well, listen, we already did one detour. I don't know what the second one.
It's a mega leg. We had to come up with a lot. We're not paying the writers overtime.
I love that. I want it to be a twist. I want it to be like up there in the pantheon with the U-turn and the roadblock and the detour. I want it to just be like, oh, it's a this or that detour. That's a twist, and we know about it. Like how they said self-driving leg. I want them to say, oh, it's a this or that. I want people to be excited about this because I love this or that.
Find a bangle or teeth that dangle.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we spent a lot of time with the bride. Just the bride has a bunch of bracelets. You got to match the bangles to the bride's wrist.
Yeah, I thought this was fun. This looked like it would be entertaining to do. I like shiny things, and I like the little detail tasks. I think this one would have been way more fun than putting your hands in someone's mouth for sure. Although I bet it took longer.
I'm just sad that the Bengals task was not when they were in Egypt and had to walk like one.
Oh, good one. Or Cincinnati.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have happened on a Monday. Been a manic Monday.
Yeah, been very manic.
So I'm thinking about Jerry and Frank who watched The Amazing Race on Tuesday. What day that would be? So
just another manic Saturday.
Okay, so we got Hung and Chi. They ended up going with that, and Hung. There was a good reason. She was excited for this.
Patient's teeth for a set of dentures.
Let's do that. That's gross, and then nobody's gonna do that. It's probably getting faster.
Yeah, Jess, is that part of the jail rules? If a challenge is gross, you should pick it because then it'll go by faster.
I think that is certainly something that Amazing Race would do to you. I think that's kind of diabolical, and they want the thing. They want both detours to happen. Like they don't want to have set up a detour that nobody goes to. So there's going to be, and Phil used to do it. Like I've been watching a lot of old Amazing Race on Pluto TV recently, just because they have a channel.
Pluto TV channel, all Amazing Race, all Survivor. Check them out.
I'm telling you, it is like the best thing to have on in the background while you're doing something else. Because I've seen it all. And I don't need to pay attention to it, but it's just comforting. It's like your old friends are there.
Yeah, and it's free.
Yeah, my old friend, much younger Phil, used to talk about the detours. He had boilerplate for it every single time. And he doesn't really do that anymore. He assumes you know what a detour is, but he's very explicit about what the pros and cons of each task are. Even if it's not something he tells the racers, but he tells you. Now, people who do this task might finish faster if they have a sharp eye, but people who just like buckle down and do the gross thing will definitely finish faster.
Yeah.
Or even as like a grosser, more Fear Factory version of the old trademark of like, hey, jump off this thing or walk all the way down. Of like, hey, you can do the scarier or road less traveled by, but that is going to be the shorter one, and so that's going to encourage people to do it, which makes for great TV.
Yeah, and Linda Holmes used to call those ones the chicken. It was like the fearless or chicken task, and then the ones where you have to do a gross thing versus a thing that's fun, the salad or dessert ones. She had like a whole taxonomy of detour options.
Yeah. Would the fitting people for dentures end up being the faster task? I feel like that would take a long time. No?
Well, I think, this was our first, the Bengals were our first needle in a haystack task of the season, which I'm happy about. I feel like Amazing Race, especially in those old seasons that Jess was talking about, was much more into the needle in the haystack. I'm thinking specifically of
the literal haystack.
Yeah, the literal haystack, or even like season, I feel like season 8, there was like the red bean within the whole pile of beans that got one family out. So like, they were much more punishing with that before. So I'm very happy they've really held off on that until now. So it could just be a thing of like, yeah, you could get lucky and get through this quickly, or it takes a little bit longer, but you're guaranteed to finish within a certain frame of time.
Okay. Just, we talked about on the Tar Pit this past week about wanting eating challenges to come back. And I said, well, I feel like that I like them because it's just like a visceral experience that grosses me out. And I feel like that stays with me and I remember it. This was that for me. Ironically, that was
I would say this
for
was
me.
this
Yeah.
and that was this.
That was this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This does kind
of.
I would say that kind of scratches the visceral itch. Although the thing I didn't like about that was the fact that they kept there was a real possibility you could cause somebody actual discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple of times where the people they were putting the dentures in, they were in actual pain. And I felt really bad about that. Okay. I think that's weird.
Let's talk about this because we talked about who are these people that are getting... Rob. Yeah, let's talk about that. Who are these people that are getting Swiggy delivery? Okay. Who are these people that are getting their dentistry done, not by dentists, but by American game show contestants?
I really hope that they had like a fake set of teeth over their real teeth for this sake of like, yeah, I don't want my possible teeth to get pulled out by
these employees. Are these homeless people that are getting the work done for free, because it's Amazing Race contestants?
I mean, I tell you what, they're not chomping down on any Swiggy anytime soon. No siree.
I mean, I feel like now is the natural time to point out that Phil points out that when you go into these dental clinics, you can get a whole set of false teeth for $3 US. And like, yeah, because India's got national health care.
Yeah. Was anyone else?
I thought it was a good deal.
I mean,
yeah, it's a good deal.
What can you get on Swiggy for $3?
I don't know. Probably like a breadstick or something.
I don't know. Stuff costs... I don't know what the exchange rate is right now or how much it costs to get a meal in India, but you could probably at least get a good side of naan.
Was anyone else disquieted by Phil's repetitive use of the word chompers? For some reason, that really got to me, that he kept saying, like, in the detour, like, these pair of chompers will go right in your mouth. I'm like, this feels very odd. Like, I don't know if it's a rattle my dags type of thing.
No, I'm immune to the word chompers right now because Chompers is the name of my favorite podcast at the moment.
What's it about? False teeth?
No, Chompers is, well, it's about not having false teeth eventually, because Chompers is a podcast that you play for your kids while you're brushing their teeth so that you know like how long to brush on each side and when to switch. And they tell a story or they tell jokes and then they're like, okay, move to the other side. Now move to the bottom and don't brush too hard.
Rob, you get in on this.
Well, all this my Quip does is just like buzz a little bit. It doesn't, I don't get a story.
No, you need one that tells a story. And
yeah,
so
I gotta tell the people over at Quip, like, stop advertising on podcasts. The Quip should play a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, they should be, I don't know, they advertise on podcasts all the time. They should just make the deal with Chompers and like be their official partner and play the podcast out of the toothbrush.
I mean, just partner with a bunch of podcasts. Like who else, like who doesn't want Mark Maron in your mouth, right? Like playing every 30 seconds. You, like,
I don't.
Over.
Yeah. Hard pass. Thank you.
Hard pass. No.
But yeah, for some reason,
WTF indeed.
I want my toothbrush to play the cereal music.
Yeah, that'd be good. Play 2 minutes of that. Yeah.
All right, now
why
it's
not?
Eric Koenig to be like, time to switch sides, and then just as during the music, that's when you make your swaps.
Okay. All right. So the teams again that I was getting like sense memory of having like all these impressions for a guy who I like impressions that are not these impressions.
Yeah, I just actually did a sort of like mail-in fitting for a night guard the other day, and it was very much a thing where like I had to press it into my teeth for 5 minutes, and I was like, I cannot imagine someone barging into my house and being like, I'm gonna do this for you right now. Come on, let's go, with like a camera shining in my face. Like I my heart goes out to these poor people, or even like the people that they had to like wrench the dentures into as the final part of the task. Like it just seemed incredibly awkward, and it didn't help that a lot of these people, especially at permanent use, were like, ew, this is gross. Oh, this is. Imagine someone standing 6 inches away from you and being like, God, this is disgusting.
Oh, your mouth
yeah.
is horrible. I hate your mouth so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard it before, but
I know.
we don't need to talk about
just
my
from your face.
yeah.
I've heard it all, and it wasn't on TV, Rob. That's the key difference.
Not on TV. All right. So, but yeah, I guess for Hung and Chi, competitive eaters, they've seen everything gross before. This does not bother them at all.
Yeah, they're essentially like, I don't know if they've raised like literal garbage pail kids of just like pure eons of disgustingness, but they seem very unfazed about everything that the race throws at them, including this type of task.
Yeah, I played this clip before, but I want to talk about it after we hear it again.
Kids are so disgusting, and can't even imagine what kind of disgustingness comes out of their little bodies.
That's okay. Okay, he says okay.
So if like the patient needed a colonoscopy, I'd do it too.
Jess, any chance that we see the Amazing Race contestants perform a colonoscopy?
God, I hope not. I don't want to watch that.
Yeah.
Oh, so you draw the line at colonoscopy, huh?
Hey,
look, I drew the line somewhere.
Very important for those of us pushing 50.
Yeah, and that's like 2/3 of this podcast.
Yeah, and that's how you can get Dave to come back, a la Ernie and Cindy, right? They like walked in, Teddy's like, please, I'm so old, give me the colonoscopy.
I would definitely, if the task was receive a colonoscopy, that could be entertaining.
Okay.
What would they disguise it of? Like, get like a typical traditional ceremony. It's like, great, what is it?
Yeah.
A colonoscopy.
Well, I'm waiting for that to be like a colonic irrigation would be one of the tasks.
Yeah, like an enema.
Yeah,
I think that's more of a tough as nails.
Yeah, it's like the task is like get punched in the face or receive a relaxing spa treatment. And if you choose get punched in the face, you get to like sit on the veranda drinking punch, and then relaxing spa treatment is the colonic.
This is when Anderson Cooper takes over as ET. That feels oh Lord, that feels very Mole-esque of like, well, actually, when I was referring to this, I actually meant this.
It's true.
Or that.
It's very Mole Patrol.
Yeah.
When I said this, I was really meant that.
All right. So the teams would then have to head to the roadblock at the palace. And Jess, you alluded to this at the top of the podcast. What a beautiful palace.
This was amazing. Like I am used to seeing some really incredible things every time the race goes to India, but this was just like on every level. It was gorgeous and relaxing, and some of it I didn't understand, but some of it, most of it was just nice to look at. Like when I thought about Haley and Kaylin getting yielded there, I could see why they just kind of stood on the, at the railing and looked out and said, isn't this a great place to be and a great day to be here?
Yeah, I think hopefully lots of rose petals dropping on them during that 20 minutes. I think they missed a moment, though, because they got to hang out with these socialites during the carriage ride where they made small talk. Why not now to say, oh, let me pull out the Swiggy order I put in beforehand. As the upper crust, of course, I eat only the finest of Swiggy.
Well, those people were not paid Swiggy endorsers. They were just socialites.
Yeah, but I do love that they were like not silent. They're like actually trying to be like, oh, so how's it going? How's your day been so far?
Yeah, just the carriage ride with the socialites was very weird. I don't understand. Like, it was not like the Amazing Race contestants were like bellhops or anything. It was just like, no, take a ride with these people. Share an Uber to go to the castle.
I have a few theories.
Yes.
Okay. One theory is they felt like they needed to connect with locals and have a chance to like actually get to know people that live in the area. And they thought it would be in poor taste to have them try to do that, even though my dentist does it to me all the time when they got their hand in your mouth, like, hey, how's it going? Like, how's your kid? How's work?
Yeah, and then they ask you questions, and then well, how am I supposed to answer them?
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they thought, well, we don't want people to do that, so we'll give them a chance to hang out with the locals.
Keyboard or something, and I could try to answer you.
Give me the ones and zeros so we can decipher a code.
There you go. Like, yeah. But I think the more likely thing is that in order to get access to the grounds of this palace to film the segment, there was some favors that had to be called into the board.
Oh,
and it was
the royal family had to be on TV?
Not even the royal family, just like the
Their
rich
friends?
D-bags. They're like, yeah, my nephew's a big fan of the show. He wants to be on it. So can he just dress up like a socialite and ride in a carriage with the racers? And they're like, well, our hands are tied. We really want to shoot here. So I guess we better.
Boy,
Yeah.
I don't know if the Amazing Race needs to do that kind of glad handing.
Look,
yeah.
I've spent a lot of years working in nonprofits, Rob. You got a glad hand, and it's just a part of the deal.
Yeah. So I know that it's going to be a little bit before Hung and Chi show up, but since we're talking about the rides with the socialites, I thought that this was the most interesting conversation that ends up being had by the socialites with the Amazing Race contestants. Here's Hung and Chi on their carriage ride.
Taking mold of a patient's teeth.
Nope, that is not that. Okay.
Okay.
That was this. That was this.
Okay.
That was this.
And then
I love your tie. It's beautiful.
That's exactly what I told her when she got ready.
Uh-huh.
This is such a lovely sari. How I wish I was a female. I would have worn it.
Yeah.
I
wish I was a female.
Look,
I would have worn it. Hey,
don't
nothing's
let gender-
stopping you, sir.
Yeah,
Don't let gender stereotyping get in the way of your dreams, man.
I am all for letting this dude's freak flag fly.
Yeah.
Like if you want to dress up in a sari, stuff your saris in a sack and put them on. Like this is what you can do. I love this guy.
And incidentally, if I was going to pick like from a group of socialites, like pick people to ride in a carriage with, I'm definitely picking the dude in the awesome sari. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going.
Sorry, sir, that we would like to see you in that sorry if you like it so much.
Yeah, if only Hung and Chi had packed more stuff, they could be like, here's a scarf that we have. Please, you can use it as a sari to act out, your dreams that you're not able to do in the moment.
Why not? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about setting the table at the palace. Just how often are they entertaining here on this 108 person table?
I'm pretty sure they throw fundraisers there all the time.
Yeah.
Could it be a thing like at a restaurant where if there's like an 8 top, you can pull it apart into 2 4 tops? Could that be a thing of like, oh, well, we don't have like a full party for the 108 table. Let's break it into like 3 30-something foot tables and host different parties there.
Mike Bloom does math.
Yeah, if we do know-it-alls in know-it-alls India in Hyderabad. Yeah, I think me and Steven will sit on top of the table and then sort of like a theater in the round. What do you think about that?
Yeah, or like those blackjack tables in Las Vegas where sometimes they get like the dancing girl to dance on top of the table for a round.
Yeah. Okay, sure. The first time ever that Steven and I have compared to Dancing Vegas showgirls, but
that surprises me.
Yeah, surprises me. I thought Steven Fishback would get at least a few.
Yeah. No. So all right, table setting. Anything strike your interest here, Mike?
So I guess the one big takeaway from this was the winnowing of the alliance. Specifically, now it's time to block out Gary Barnage, where James and Riley, I think it is. I did find it interesting that with all the guy teams, with Gary and D'Angelo, Will and James, and Riley and Madison, that they had the same person do both roadblocks. I wonder if that was advantageous actually to have like the same person do both routes, because it's all in the course of a day. So it's like, let's keep going with it. But yeah, this is where James and Riley make conscious decisions here to basically fill each other in on everything that they're picking up, particularly the stuff that Riley's getting wrong. And then like lying outright to Gary's face of like, yeah, I don't know what's happening. Clearly we're doing something wrong, but I'm not sure what.
This was like all set up because I'm like, oh,
literally.
I wonder if Gary and D'Angelo are going to get eliminated here because they're making such a meal here at the table over this place setting, and then Gary like kind of got through it, not big of a problem. I thought that maybe once it was like, oh, has to be a finger away. I'm like, oh, Gary's finger is too big. His finger is like 2 fingers. Gary should be doing a pinky.
Yeah, his finger's like a fist.
Yes.
Honestly, Rob, you fell for it. That's what they were trying to, like, that's how they get you,
They
man.
get me. Well, that's what you guys are the experts.
Yeah, they were trying to make you think that Gary was in trouble because that was how they were trying to inject suspense into this otherwise bloodless leg. It was like, oh, well, what if Gary's there for so long that Kaylin and Haley show up? And what if they pass him and then D'Angelo and Gary are eliminated in the most shocking elimination ever? P.S. That would have been better than what we got. Not that I have any problem with D'Angelo and Gary, but I think they were trying to make us think that might happen, and that keeps our interest.
Yeah, I think that I also think it's again a little bit of like a nothing burger to actually do this, because not for nothing, like you could eventually see the meter stick. You could eventually, like, the guy will come up to you and be like, oh, the length from the table. The guy was very specific, or he wasn't very specific, but like he was going through, putting a finger at the edge of the table. You'd imagine that Gary would see that at least one time and be like, oh yeah, I guess I'm supposed to do that. Like, these weren't big national secrets that these two were withholding. So to Jess's point, like, it's another thing where I feel like it really was not a big deal whatsoever in the moment. It was just built up to make this moment and potentially looking forward of, okay, now the next step is to get rid of Gary and D'Angelo.
And we yada past Riley and Madison would yield Kaylin and Haley for the second time in the mega leg, which was kind of a nail in the coffin for them. But, we got to, like, Gary and D'Angelo, we were talking about, like, D'Angelo says, look, the girls are like cockroaches. You can never get rid of them. I'm like, oh, they're going to come back and they're going to pass Gary and D'Angelo. But no, I was like, it seems impossible, but I don't know. I feel like they were really getting set up for something.
Yep.
No, I fell for it. They got me again.
No, I mean, it was them really trying to make, like, not even a mountain out of a molehill, a mountain out of a flat patch of ground. And you really can't pile up much dirt. So they were trying to do something, but I mean, it really is. Jess really brought this up so great over the course of the Amazing Race podcast. Like, the kiss of death is when you are never shown in the same frame as any other teams. And ever since the autos in like minute 5 of the first episode, we never saw Kaylin and Haley in frame with any of the other teams, which is pretty much confirmation that they were pretty screwed from the get-go here in Hyderabad.
Yeah. Just, it seemed like that really the key to this challenge was picking easy napkin folds. And it seemed like I felt like Gary picked a very difficult one.
Yeah, that fan is hard to get it to stand up. And honestly, I tried a bunch of these. Like, my parents are big cloth napkin people. In fact, I've always got cloth napkins like kicking around my desk.
Oh, look at that.
Downstairs.
Yeah.
And so I was trying some of them. That one where you roll it up and like have it just kind of balance like a swoosh.
Yeah, like the tadpole.
That's the one to pick. That one is easy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're looking for like minimal folds and like a little swirly do, not anything that requires a lot of like manipulation. I also like, I think my favorite was almost the complete opposite of the Swiggy representative. There was an exchange where I think maybe James went up to the person like, oh, you're going to show me how to do this napkin? And the guy went, yes, why not? He's like, well, what else do I have to do today? I'll show you how to make a fan.
Yes.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, usually I have to make 108 of these by myself. Happy that you guys are here today. Okay. All right. Anything else about the mega leg? Ultimately, Kaylin and Haley, they're the last team to arrive. The Mine 5 ganged up. I felt like Phil at the mat really was very... he did not like the Mine 5.
Well, I think Phil to the Mine 5 was sort of Julie Chen Moonves with the committee in the first half of Big Brother 22 of like, you won't believe what happened, who did it. And I guess good on Phil for, I guess, really being restrained about that. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't want to read the expressions on Phil's face, but I could tell that I do not think he was particularly pleased by this like new innovative bit of strategy, even though, I mean, again, the results speak for themselves, like it or hate it. These 5 teams are going to be the top 5 teams of Amazing Race 32. Yes.
But Jess, we saw that with on the mat that Will and James said they are not gung ho about the Mine 5.
Yeah, well, the Mine 5 is dead. We heard him say it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I also liked Iswar and Aparna and Hung and Shi at the mat together, and they're like, Phil's like, oh, so what comes next? And Iswar and Aparna's like, I don't know, like, you know, we only said we get to 5, and Hung and Shi are like, yeah. we don't have any strategy moving forward whatsoever. And I'm sure Hung was like biting her lip to not give away the information to them.
Hung is the worst liar ever. Like her kids found out about Santa Claus at like age 3. Like, yeah, do you believe in him?
Well, in fairness, they have disgusting things coming out of their bodies. So
yeah, that's not disgusting at all. Oh, I'll clean that up happily. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And I felt bad that Gary and D'Angelo like, yeah, mine 5, baby. Yeah, that's it. We do what we have to do. We're the mine 5.
And again, it's so weird that again this narrative is being pushed forward of like, my God, Gary and D'Angelo are all take, ungrateful bastards, and these guys are like, we love our alliance. They're a great group of people. And
yeah, they're team players. They're team players.
Congruity.
Yeah, I wanna point out a couple of things that people said over and over. One of which was annoying and one of which was puzzling. So, the annoying one.
Which is which?
No, I will tell you. The annoying one was the Volley Bros referred to this leg at least 5 times as gnarly.
Gnarly, yes. I had notes of it as well. That like I think we had a big bump in Riley and Madison this week, Set and Spike, and that they came in first and like pretty much cruised through the leg. I did worry that they had the first quote early on of like them being like, yeah, beach volleyball usually playing all day, so I think like this leg is made for us. That's usually the kiss of death of like, oh man, they're gonna get whammoed completely. But I think because of the bump, we got to see that maybe their vocabulary is not necessarily as deepened as other teams. Considering that, yeah, there was a lot of gnarly. There was a lot of, I don't know, that gnarly was the one that I picked out a lot as well.
Yep. I was just like, it just kept sticking out because they just kept doing it. I was like, oh, did I accidentally hit the button where it like bumps you back 30 minutes? But no. So the other thing was, the phrase "the Blonde Bandits" came up several different times. And is this because they have stolen
They've stolen America's hearts and they're not giving them back?
Yeah, have they kind of like, is it because they've stolen extra time on the race by slipping past in several legs when they should have been eliminated? I don't know. But it seemed curious because I don't think like it's not one of those weasel woo situations where it's like, oh, there's a story behind it. It just sort of cropped up.
Yeah, and I wonder who came up with the term. Like whether they come up with it or like for some reason like, oh, the Blonde Bandits strike again. Maybe it's that thing of like, oh, we think you've got you, but you escaped our grasp again. And they're more so like eluding the dangers that are coming to them.
Yeah. Could it have been that they stole the spot of Michelle and Victoria?
I mean, it is interesting sort of looking at the sliding doors because now I think we can look at it through the prism of, okay, now we're down to the mine 5. I mean, do we think that like a Leo and Alana, I know this is a lot of prognosticating, but do we think like a Leo and Alana or a Michelle and Victoria could have possibly cracked this group considering like the legs in Kazakhstan and India in particular?
I mean, it just really comes down to like, would they have had like a task that along the way which would have derailed them? I'm not sure if there was something that you would say like, okay, that definitely would have been a problem for either of those 2 teams.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. They
would have been fine. Yeah,
they would have been fine.
So
yeah, or they at least would have been more competitive. And again, I think it's like Haley and Kaylin. Again, I think they were absolutely lovely people. I love talking with them. Are they the strongest racers? Not necessarily, but it is really interesting how much a lot of their race was also informed by like pretty bad luck as well, right? Because for all intents and purposes, they did okay during India. It's just that this like ragamuffin cab driver that apparently drove past the location they were supposed to go to several times put them so far back, and then they had 40 minutes of waiting added on top of that it was just like, this is like old yellow. It was old yellow hair this week. It just really putting them down behind the barn.
So, Jess, the question that I have here is, okay, forget the mine 5. Is the final 3 going to be the mine 3, the gung-ho 3?
God, I hope not. That's just going to be boring. It's like, I don't know. It feels like Destiny now.
Yeah, it's
final
tough
destination.
Because I mean, I guess the bright side would be if you're looking for an iron sharpens iron approach, these are, I think, the 3 strongest teams of the season. And so it would make for a hell of a final leg. And Jess, your point about finales not being the strongest episodes of Amazing Race, that might not be the case here. You might have, for one of the first seasons we can remember in a while, like the outright 3 best teams of the season competing against each other. But to your point, that's also going to mean the next 2 episodes are going to be fairly rote, especially if there's a U-turn involved. Here's my other question as well with the Mine 5. How much do you think the Mine 5 was strengthened actually by the advent of the Yield? Because the Yield is an opportunity to like strategically wield influence. I wonder if that didn't exist outside of the U-turn, would Will and James and the Volley Bros and everyone be so gung-ho of like, okay, we're going to work together? Because if you don't have really any weapons to use, then there's not really that much of like a commodity you can use when making transactions.
That's a really good point, Mike. I think this is the first season. I think this is of all of the seasons of Amazing Race we've watched, this is the one where the racers seem to have the most agency over who else gets eliminated. And a part of that is certainly because they know everybody has the Yield and they can work together to figure out how to use it. Although I would argue that all the times we've seen the Yield deployed, that was the team that was going home anyway, but it did kind of galvanize them to sort of talk to each other and figure out who they wanted to be there with them and then work with those people to get them further. And I don't know if it's necessarily the case that there's been more of that this season than in previous seasons, because we've talked to other racers and we know that they always work with other teams, at least on a situational basis. But it really does feel like the racers are affecting their own destiny, when in the past, the point of the Amazing Race was that you can't always control who else is leaving the game. There's always a chance that someone's going to sneak by based on the elements of luck or being really good at a task. And it's like there's a lot on the Amazing Race that's out of your control, and it feels like there's more that's in their control this season, which kind of makes it a little more claustrophobic in a way.
I want to ask a couple of big picture questions. Do you think that if it does turn out this way, where there was the Mine 5, and then the Mine 5 became the Final 5, and then there was the 3, and then if the Gung-Ho 3 becomes the 3, do you think that contributed to the reason why there was such a long gap between how long this has been in the can for? Do you think that ended up being a reason why there was not a rush to air this?
I mean, first you have to call it the Hung-Ho 3. But I think that, I think CBS, starting in season 30, has figured out where they want Amazing Race, which is essentially to put it in the nooks and crannies between all their other big shows. Because I think 29 was the last time they really showed it on like that Friday night death slot. And then after that, they're like, oh yeah, we'll just throw it on the primetime slot, like in between shows. I mean, season 30, they'd had like 3 or 4 double episodes, I remember. So they're fine with just like rushing through the season. I don't know if they're necessarily like, hey, this season's a little, rote down the line. We don't need to necessarily run it. I feel like they would have loved to get it out. I just think it's a matter of, well, we'll find time for it in our schedule. And because, season 31, they didn't have time in the schedule until spring and summer of 2019. They couldn't really find time. They were going to find time before, the summer of 2020. Maybe for some reason that would have been the I guess if anything, it would have gotten bumped for Tough as Nails, but maybe they felt like Amazing Race was such a known product that with the growing chance of no Survivor in the fall, they're like, okay, we can at least put this on in the fall because it's a reality show that's in the can that people know.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Mike. I don't think they necessarily bumped it for Tough as Nails so much as Tough as Nails took its spot because they didn't know how Tough as Nails was going to do. They didn't know what a national treasure that show would ultimately become, but they did know that there's a certain number of people that are always going to watch Amazing Race, and we need those people to stick with our network if there's no new Survivor in the fall.
Okay, and then how about this? Will we ever find out if the Amazing Race enacted any sort of new rules in season 33 once they began filming with the season that ended up having to be stopped because of COVID?
Well, I mean, we could probably find some of those people and ask them, but I've talked a little bit with some of the racers that are on this season, and they have mentioned that it seemed like they were almost adjusting on the fly to make sure that this helping didn't take over the entire season. And so I would say we are going to definitely see some new rules in place in season 33 whenever that happens. is.
Jess, can I ask you, because I'm like you're so in the know and I'm not. Is the identity of like are the do people know who the teams are of the season 33 cast of The Amazing Race?
Everybody always knows who's running the race before the race finishes filming, because there's this little site called Reality Fan Forum that tracks the race in real time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they ever found out exactly who everybody was.
Right. I know the one big ticket item was, I will not say the names, but there was a couple from Love Island that were racing, and that was like the big ticket news item from
Love Island 1.
Yeah, from Love Island 1. That when there was news of the season stopping, they're like, oh, this season had a couple from Love Island on it.
And they've since broken up, so I don't know if they'll pick back up for 33.
Yeah, that'll be a fun
reconciliation. Pick up where they left off.
Yeah, but the other team that I knew was on there was a team that they're kind of, I don't know if they're YouTubers. I always see them on Facebook, like this couple that makes videos of like funny songs and things, and they're very funny. I was excited to see them, so I hope that
Will Affertude and Jess Sterling.
Yes. Yeah, I was trying to keep that under wraps. I didn't want to jeopardize their chances of getting back on.
I think that I'm happy to hear that, that they were sort of fixing things on the flat. Look, is that going to fix the narrative aspects of things, which is probably the most frustrating part out of all of this? I don't think so. And that's, my hope moving forward is that we are down from the Mine 5. I really hope that the next 2 episodes are not just going to be like, we have to make sure us 3 teams get to the end. Because again, while it's certainly an advent, like I want to concentrate more on what the teams are doing and the personalities, which I still think are there. But if the entire, thing being beaten into our heads was like, wow, isn't this crazy how, James and Will were able to sort of engineer this alliance? It's impressive, but I don't need to see only that. So I'm happy that, at least from like a pragmatic perspective, the race is adjusting to make sure the whole Hung D'Angelo fiasco never happens again. I just want to see more of these teams having fun around the world, and less so about, how they're working to make sure that they are sitting in a specific configuration that works to their betterment.
All right. Jess, anything else about the mega leg?
The mega leg. I don't know. There's like a couple. There's a couple of little silly moments that I liked. Like I liked Madison goofing around by the portrait of the dude with the cool beard.
Yeah.
And I liked that Gary's little roadblock suit went to his knees, and then Hung was wearing the exact same one and it went to her ankles.
Yeah, I love his little capris. So I guess we could also give a moratorium on the yield as well. Are we saying sending it to Samoa or Noah moving forward? Are we putting this thing back into retirement on The Amazing Race?
I'll say I would keep it if we could put some more parameters in place. Like if you could as a team only receive a yield one time, I think that makes it a more interesting play. I like that everybody got one. That was nice, but I didn't like that everybody just basically dumped all of their yields on one team. That didn't feel sporting, and it didn't really affect the outcome. So yeah, I want you to decide when you're going to use it and who you're going to use it on. Like, could you burn it on one of your allies so that they can't be yielded again? Like, there's a lot of interesting things that could happen with this rule change, and I'm waiting for Twitter to tell me why this is a dumb idea.
No,
like,
it's a good idea. Shut up, Twitter.
Yeah, at me. Tell me why I'm wrong about this, because I don't think I am.
You get yielded once, that's it. You can't get yielded again. Isn't that the case with the U-turn?
No.
You can be U-turned multiple times?
In the past seasons, you've been able to only U-turn once, but I think that's sort of gone away. Yeah. Rob, you were a newbie to the yield. How do you feel about it?
It didn't really bring a lot to the table. I mean, I think that the most we got out of it was when we saw Kaylin and Haley giving a yield to Leo and Alana, but even then, it was not the decisive death blow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
the final death blow.
Fine with sending this back to the dump, as it were. I just think it showed why.
The Snails episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those, but it's one of those things where like you bring it back and you're like, oh yeah, there's a reason why this turned into the U-turn. It felt like, I like Jess has said before, like I don't love the admin of people just standing waiting around while a timer ticks down. At least with the U-turn, you have to go out and accomplish it. There's something actionable behind it. This felt like may provide 1 or 2 dramatic moments, but I will honestly say I think for the most part it's been a failure, which is fine. It's cool to experiment, but I would say like I'd rather see like a U-turn vote than a yield.
U-turn vote was good. Bring it back.
No,
Yeah,
maybe this
I like
this
return
this
vote.
this season it actually would have been a bit of a really
Yeah.
big hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it for this season. Amazing Race Australia had yield vote.
Yeah. I feel like that the Amazing Race, when it's working at its best, it should be like a game of Mario Kart for people who get on me about pronunciation of that, it's not like, hey, we're the top 4 teams. Let's, box out Koopa and Princess. That everybody's shooting the red turtle shells at anybody that's in front of them. It's a free for all.
Right. And so I think maybe they felt like by inviting more powers into the game, as you will, that would sort of cause that calamity to happen. And evidently it didn't. Maybe it was just sort of, again, I don't know if that informed this group sort of coalescing together, or if it just happened to coincidentally. But, the yield was introduced on I think 6 out of 6 legs or something, 6 out of 8 legs. And it was used twice. I think that's all you need to see as to whether or not this thing will actually do carry out the effect that you want it to.
Okay. All right. Anything else that we want to say before we get to moving on from the mega leg?
We're going to Cambodia next week.
Ooh,
Speaking
okay.
of the aforementioned table dancer Stephen Fishback.
Okay. All right. We'll see what comes up next Wednesday. Back to 1 hour of Amazing Race. It's gonna fly by.
Yeah,
all right.
I think only 3 episodes left. Like we made it through 4 episodes in 2 weeks, and now we are merely less than a month away from a winner being crowned here.
Yeah. Jess, you and I had the chance to talk about people racing with dogs over on Amazon on the brand new show, The Pack. We got to review the series premiere over there, and it was a fun show, which if you're looking for more Amazing Race-like fare, without, a ton of alliance stuff, check out The Pack over on Netflix.
Yeah, if you love dogs, I think you will really enjoy The Pack. I guess that's, Amazing Race, but dogs.
So do the dogs have to fit people for their dentures as well?
Well, you've only gotten the first episode.
Yeah, they might do that in a later leg, but they have not so far.
Yeah. Okay. You can check out our podcast there with Brooklyn Zed and Lita Brillman up on robisawebsite.com. Just what else do you have coming up?
Well, Mike Bloom and I got Star Trek Disco all up in our ears and eyes. I don't know where I'm going with this. I heard disco, and I'm trying to go a disco way, and I don't know. It's been a long day. This is not
that's a very Tilly-like response of plugging the podcast, Jess. So I think it's very on the mark.
I'm doing my best, Sylvia Tilly, to tell you all to check out our recap of Star Trek Discovery, which usually drops around Sunday. And that is a lot of fun. And also, we are just about wrapping up Fear the Walking Dead World Beyond. And Josh Wigler and Chappelle and I have been having a really great time. The season finale of Fear the Walking Dead, such as it is, due to pandemic, they had to stop filming, but that aired this week. And we had a great time breaking it all down. And we got one more week of World Beyond, and then that too will be over. And it'll be sad to say goodbye to these 2 shows, which is something I never thought I would say.
Okay. Mike, what do you have coming up?
So besides the Star Trek stuff, down the hatch, we have gone around to Catch 22. Desmond's a monk. What? And all those questions and more are answered as Josh Wigler and I really go round the bend to finish off season 3 of Lost as well, which is going to be a crazy stretch down the line. So be sure to check all that out, as well as I mentioned before, I got to interview Kaylin and Haley about their experience on the race, what they learned about each other, which they were able to still do that despite spending each and every day together. They still learn things about each other, all their ups and downs, mostly downs over the course of the race, and how the friendship that they struck up with Leo and Alana ended up, instead of walking to the yield board, they ended up walking down the aisle at their wedding. So be sure to check that all out at parade.com. And we will certainly have more to come with the tar pits as well, which should be coming out on the weekend.
Okay. Yes. Send us your questions. Amazing Race at robhasawebsite.com. We'll get into the tar pit, my interview with Kaylin and Haley as well, and much more fun and games over on the tar pit. Plus, we had talking with T-Bird this week. We caught up with Brandon Quinton, a old tribe mate for Teresa Cooper, who I remember Survivor Africa was airing on Thanksgiving night way back when in the year 2001. Clarence got voted out. Very sad. Spoiler alert for that night. And then also, of course, lots more. Got some fun podcasts coming up this weekend. If you didn't catch my discussion with Chappelle about Enneagrams, I thought that was a really fun podcast that I did this past week. Plus, we caught up about the Spice Girls on Robin and Community podcast. Lots of great stuff going on. robhasawebsite.com. Have a happy holiday, everybody. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.